When it comes to cybersecurity, there are all kinds of preventive mechanisms that you can put in place with the goal of hoping that you never actually have a breach. One of the things we've learned from the zero trust philosophy, though, is at the same time, you should assume you're going to be breached at some point. And while that sounds contradictory, it's not. It's more thinking worst case scenario and making sure that you've got that covered. And that's where the idea of an incident response plan comes into play. An incident response plan is exactly what it sounds like. If there is an incident, how are we going to respond, right? And so an incident means a breach of some sort. Part of what you do in an incident response plan is define what is an incident, meaning what kind of event has to happen for the plan you're putting in place to get triggered and to take, to begin to roll out and go into action. And then the response itself is exactly that. If we have an incident, a breach of a certain size, whether that's a ransomware incident or a potential phishing that has exposed financial information, or someone is now trying to access your bank accounts, right? These are the kinds of incidents that are the highest risk and the most common. Then you have a response plan in place for that, which is, okay, who is going to help us either internally or externally or both jump into the fray, establish a bridge with a phone call, begin to talk about strategy, which providers need to be contacted. Are we going to, for example, if it's a ransomware event, are we going to roll back behind are we going to roll our files back behind the event so that we're not exposed to that anymore? And if we do, how much data are we going to lose if we do that? Is there any information that's been in that ransomware that we can live without or can't live without? These are all the kinds of things that you would talk about in the process of building an incident response plan. And usually as part of that, what would happen is you'd make some changes to your current procedures. So I mentioned a rollback. Well, you can only roll back if, one, you've got good backups in place, and the gap between when you do backups, whether that's every 30 seconds, every 5 minutes, every day, and none of those are right or wrong. It kind of depends on the nature of the data, that you've got good alignment around when you're making those snaps or when you're making those backup files, so that if you do roll back behind it, you know that you've lost as little data as your business can afford. But again, that's a judgment call and what's something that you would do as part of an incident response planning process.